Good morning. Great job, all joyful noisers. That was wonderful. Well, I don't know. Some of you may know that I'm a grandmother. I'm sure I look like a grandmother, so. But my grandchildren call me Gigi, and sometimes when I'm talking to them, and maybe your grandmothers or grandfathers do this too, I will say things to them. I'll use an expression, and they won't know what I mean. Like, I'll give you an example. One day I was talking to my granddaughter Jane, and I made the comment that they really put somebody through the ringer. And she looked at me like, ringer? Or what do you mean, Gigi? And does anybody have any idea what I was talking about when I said that? Have you ever heard that expression? No? Well, I knew many of you have, right? What did you hear? Oh, quick as a wink. Yeah, like a wink is fast, right? When you wink, you do it fast. Well, when you put somebody through the ringer, it means you really give them a tough time, because back many years ago, when there were washing machines, aren't like they are today. So you had a washing tub where the stuff washed, and then you would take the clothes out and you'd put them through a ringer, right? So you'd force the clothes through there, and it would squeeze all the water out. Not like today when your clothes spin and spin and spin, and that gets the water out of it. So that was a hard process. You were squeezing that through there. So that's what that means when you say you put someone through the ringer. That means you really give them a tough time. You're really hard on them. So another expression that I sometimes use is jumping on the bandwagon. Have you ever heard of that one? No? Well, jumping on the bandwagon means that you might start doing something somebody else is doing. Let's say you're at a school dance and everybody's flossing, and then you start flossing. You're jumping on the bandwagon because you might be doing something someone else is doing. And long ago, when the circus would come to town, you know what a circus is? Might have gone to one of those. Well, they would usually parade through town, and they would try to entice or try to get people to come to the show. And so many times people would kind of follow along with the parade, and they often had a wagon with people playing musical instruments. So sometimes little kids, in the days before people didn't think too much about safety, but they might jump on the wagon and ride along because they were going to the circus. So I'll give you one more. Elvis has left the building. Have you ever heard that one? Did your parents ever say, look, Elvis has left the building. Stop bugging me about this. You do? You know what that is, Bodie?
I've heard it on the NHL when one of the teams wins the Sydney Cup. The Stanley.
Okay, so they're saying it's over, right? Elvis has left the building. Well, does anybody know who Elvis Presley is?
Wasn't he like a singer?
He was like a singer. Yeah, he was a singer. He was a singer, and very popular, very popular. And he would have concerts, and people would just clamor for more. He would come out for encores, and finally, somebody had to come out after the crowd wouldn't leave, and they had to tell all the people sitting out there, Elvis has left the building, meaning he's not coming back, you're not getting any more music, so time to file out and go home. So if somebody says that to you, or if you hear it in the sports, Elvis has left the building, that means it's over. Right? So what does this all have to do with Easter and Jesus rising from the dead and going to heaven? Well, I'll tell you. I'm taking a while to get to this real big segue here. But after Easter happened, the Sunday, a week later, Jesus rose from the grave, and then a week later, Thomas... wait a minute. On the Sunday after Jesus rose from the grave, he appeared to his disciples, his followers, and they were really amazed that he had risen from the dead and that they got to see him. But one of the disciples, named Thomas, was not there, so he didn't get to see him. And when the disciples told him that they had seen Jesus, you know what Thomas said? It's kind of gross, but what he said was, I won't believe it until I see it with my own eyes. I want to put my finger in the nail prints in his hand. And I want to place my hand where the spear was thrust in his side. So it's like, if I don't see that, I don't believe it. I have to see that. So then, a week later, Thomas saw Jesus. And what do you think Jesus invited Thomas to do? What did he say to him? Yes, Jacob. Elvis has left the building. Yep, that's what he said. But I like that. No, he invited him to touch the wounds on his hand and the spear. He said, here, touch it, so you believe it. Then Thomas believed. He believed once he saw that. And Jesus said to him, because you have seen me, you have believed. But blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. So he's saying, blessed are the people who really haven't seen it, but they still believe it. Thomas had to see it to believe it. A lot of people today won't believe that Jesus rose from the grave because they haven't seen it with their own two eyes. And so people who don't believe something, what do we call them? If they doubt something, we call them a doubting Thomas. Because Thomas was the disciple that didn't believe it. So if you ever hear that expression, if you say, he's a doubting Thomas, because somebody that doesn't believe something, then you'll know what that means. So think of all these things now. You can converse with older people now. You know those expressions. So it is true. You and I have not seen Jesus, but we accept him by faith. The question is, will you believe it or not? Yeah, you believe by faith. So let's bow our heads. Dear Jesus, help us to accept by faith that you have risen from the grave and that you are alive. Help us to believe because it is true, whether we believe it or not. Amen. Thank you.